An analysis of Lowell Liebermann's Gargoyles Opus 29, Fourth Movement by Sarah Hamatake. Lowell Liebermann is currently one of the most recorded still living 20th century composers and is an innovator of the 20th century style of music. Instead of sticking to one style, he has found a successful way to combine the 20th century and Romantic styles. His most celebrated piano works, Gargoyles Opus 29, is distinctly 20th century, but the Romantic influences are impossible to miss. As Stephen Huff has said, who has recorded Gargoyles 2 separate times, Liebermann looks not backward at tradition, but forward with tradition. Liebermann's style of composing is what many people call innovative, while maintaining a sense of traditionalism. To describe his compositional style in his own words, once I actually have decided I've got my material and I can begin. Then I usually compose from A to Z. I usually compose a piece in the order it's listened to. When asked in an interview if he would ever go back and revise his works, he said, "Very rarely. I'll occasionally go back, but usually I don't do much revising." Liebermann has a very distinct way of composing, and one thing he really emphasizes in many interviews and articles is that every note is important to him and should have their moment, and he only uses notes that are absolutely necessary. Because of this outlook he has on music, he composes very carefully, and it isn't necessary for him to go back and revise. As for the name Gargoyles, it depicts a vision of stone creatures perched on the edges of Gothic cathedrals, their mouths wide open to act as a type of rain gutter. For many people, when they think of gargoyles, they think of them as being scary or even demonic statues that are meant to depict evil. Liebermann's Gargoyles to an extent depicts this vision, but these etude-like pieces were not named gargoyles until after the finished product. The idea is still there, but should not be taken too literally. Although Liebermann has a distinctly Romantic influence in his music, often the melodies in Gargoyles are not easy to pick out by sight, especially in numbers 1 and 4. Instead of the melody standing out clearly, it will be intertwined with fast figures running between both hands, with the melody often following the contour of the hands. In numbers 2 and 3, the melodies are easy to pick out above the thinner harmonic textures. It is easy to hear through all 4 pieces in the suite that Liebermann has more of a melodic and rhythmic focus than a harmonic one. The third movement of Gargoyles has hauntingly beautiful melodies throughout the piece. Liebermann wastes no time jumping into the fourth movement with a complete change in feeling from the third movement. It starts out at a tempo marking of presto feroce in 12/8 time, with the dotted quarter being set at 144. For the tempo is so quick in 12/8, it is best to be felt in divisions of 4 instead of feeling each 8th note. For the sake of simplicity, in my analysis I will treat this movement as if it were in 4. What you just heard was the beginning of the fourth movement, where both hands start a 1/6 apart in the bass clef. In the right hand, on every downbeat, there is an octave with a single line of 8th notes between each octave. The octaves stand out naturally with the doubled notes, and although there are no accents on the octaves, these are the melody. The melody is pretty simple, repeated notes in the first measure, followed by mostly chromatic steps. To make the opening even more frantic, there is a non-legato marking, which gives it a more unstable sound and an attacking feel. In the left hand, beats 1 and 3 are octaves. Between each octave is a quick scalar pattern built on G and B minor, which keeps the momentum going. The melody is more abrupt, and with the continual scalar patterns in the left hand, the feeling of perpetual motion is never lost. In measures 4 through 8, the octaves in the right hand are on subbeats 1 and 3 of every main beat. This gives the piece a feel of being in a new time signature, but the melody continues to move mostly chromatically as it did before. In this section, the left hand thins out for 2 measures and then brings back the octaves on every beat, similar to what the right hand was doing in the first 4 measures. In the transition into the next section, both hands move a half step and then a whole step. Let's listen to this next section and listen for that change in time signature. In the right hand in measure 9, there are a lot of repeated notes in the descent before it jumps up a minor 6th and then moves downward again in the same kind of pattern. In the left hand, there are 2 measures of the previous kind of pattern, except this time it is arpeggiated. After this, there are 4 measures of octaves on subbeats 1 and 3 of every beat with a tritone between each octave. In section B, in both hands, we have the first place there is a rest since the beginning of the piece, after an abrupt end on a C major chord at fortissimo. The right hand continues in C major for a while, the dynamic level drops down to piano, and the driving motion is back, although both hands are not playing constantly together. Let's just start a little bit before section B comes in, and you can hear the transition. The hands alternate between playing, with the right hand playing a lot of the same chords repeatedly, still moving mostly by chromatics. The left hand is playing a half step away from the right hand while playing a low C on the second subbeat of beat 1. There are no accents in the treble clef, but the left hand's low C has a sforzando on it, which really emphasizes the syncopation and throws off the listener. This time when we listen to section B, listen for that syncopation on the low C. In A prime, the left hand remains the same as A for the first 4 measures. The right hand has, however, moved up a tritone and is now a minor second away from the left hand on beat 1. The dynamic level is also now at a mezzo forte. I will quickly play the beginning of, of section A and then the section of A prime and see if you can hear the difference with the tritone. And now A prime. In addition to the right hand being moved up by a tritone, in the A section, the phrases were 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 4. In A prime, they are 4 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3. So not only is Liebermann changing the harmonies and bringing up the dynamics, but he is also building intensity by extending and changing the phrases while maintaining the same kind of shape. Liebermann continues to play on the theme by bringing it out of the low register of the piano and taking the melody in the right hand quickly up 3 repeated octaves in different registers. And here is that section with the octaves. In the left hand, he extends the arpeggios to span 3 octaves per beat, while the right hand moves up chromatically. At the end of A prime, there is a new theme brought in, but instead of calling it a new theme, it makes sense to call it an extension of A prime. It is only 4 measures long and serves as a bridge from A prime into B prime. The intensity builds with both hands moving in octaves. First, the left hand spans 4 octaves on F, and then the right hand spans 4 octaves on G flat. The hands move chromatically, with the left hand moving down and the right hand moving up until both hands end on a C major chord, transitioning us into section B prime. There is a similar addition to the B prime section as there was between A and A prime. The rhythms haven't changed and the basic motive is the same, starting again in C major. This time a full pedal is added with a change at every measure. The chords are full triads with the 5th doubled in both hands, and the hands continue to be half a step apart, maintaining the tension from the previous B section. Also similar to the differences between A and A prime. In section B, the phrase lengths were 4 plus 4. In B prime, there is an added measure to the phrase, making it 4 plus 2 plus 3. In this return of A, the notes are almost identical to the first A section. There are a few doubled notes and the dynamics are now at fortissimo. The biggest change is the phrasing, however. Instead of groups of 4s and 2s like in A, or 4 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 like in A prime, this time the phrasing is 4 plus 4 plus 5. Although the notes are very near to the A section, Liebermann mixes it up by extending measures and then shortens them again. Just to hear the contrast from the beginning, I will play the beginning and A double prime so you can hear how much it is built from there. And here's a double prime. For the first time in the piece, there's a completely new kind of material with a new rhythm, new tempo marking, and a new time signature. The section starts out dramatically with a drop from a double sforzando down to piano. Along with the drop in dynamics, there is a marking for meno mosso subito poco a poco più presto e crescendo, meaning suddenly less movement, but little by little presto and crescendo. The right hand moves between triads with an open arpeggio with some doubled notes. The left hand is moving down chromatically before jumping up to an A and then moving back down again. The dynamics are dramatic, and each crescendo ends with a rinforzando, meaning to reinforce, which is an even a heavier emphasis on the downbeat. Let's listen to just a little bit before we go into this section C. Let's start it right there. After that completely new material in section C, in the next section we go back to the familiar. I called this section B double prime because the motives are the same as the B section with some new material. The B double prime section is the same as the other B sections, with hands alternating triads with the fifth doubled by minor seconds with the same rhythmic motive. The alternating measure is a quick scalar figure in the right hand of dotted 16th notes, and in the left hand arpeggio figures of 8th notes, creating 3 against 4 in the hands. The figures happen so quickly it is hard to hear the contrasting rhythms, but they are definitely there. Let's listen to this and see if you can hear the 3 against 4. There is a similarity in rhythmic motive in this section to the rhythms in section B. However, the hands are moving from octave to triad in contrary motion between the hands. The speed and intensity builds as the hands move out the keyboard. After the initial rhythm is set and the new theme presented in this section, Liebermann switches it up by changing the meter from 12/8 to 16/8, which throws off the sense of time previously developed in the new section. And coming up is the measure of 16/8. And then back to 12/8. At the end of the previous section, the hands have moved 2 octaves up the keyboard through the sequences of octaves and triads. The right hand remains in the same register while the left hand moves a whole step down from where the sequence started. The right hand moves only chromatically in large chords, some with 6 notes in an octave. The left hand moves quickly in octaves, spanning about 3½ octaves each time. The texture has thickened considerably from the opening octaves and single lines to thick chords and quick movements in the left hand, and from pianissimo to fortissimo. The very end of the piece ends with quick arpeggio figures at the keyboard spanning about 4 octaves, each beat being grouped in 5. The very end takes 2 8th rests between arpeggio figures of 16th notes. The first is an arpeggio sequence based off of C major, ending on a B major chord, and then a B major arpeggio sequence ending on an E flat major chord, and finally ending on the 3 lowest A's on the keyboard at a triple sforzando with a marking for secco, meaning dry or abrupt. The brilliance of this piece is that it has elements of 20th century music as well as more of a romantic style, but the 20th century part is harder to pick up on. The melody is easy to hear, which makes it seem less 20th century, but if you break it down and play it slowly, bringing out each note, you can hear many dissonances and lack of tonality. There are many intervals that you wouldn't expect or necessarily like to hear that are hidden between the melodies. Intervals like major seconds, minor sixths, tritones, and many others. Liebermann so smoothly transitions from section to section that it is almost too easy to miss out on the weird phrase lengths, the cross rhythms, and meter changes. The brilliance of this piece lies in the sneakiness of the composer.